Okay, just to make sure we have everything set, if you can hear me and see my screen, could you please hit on the hand icon on your panel? Okay, Carol, Cedar, Cindy, you can all, okay. Peter, if you can hear me and see my screen, could you please hit on the hand icon on your panel? Oh, thank you, Peter. Okay, I believe we are all set. And as I said before, today's webinar, we will be talking about blocks, menus, and book lists. The webinar will be for 60 minutes, followed by 30 minutes for question and answer. We would like you to hold all your questions until we are done with the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can also type it in, and we will address it as soon as the presentation is over. And without any delay, I'm going to hand it over to Scott, who will start the presentation today with menus, I believe. Is that menus, Scott, first?
Blocks, actually.
Blocks. Okay, Scott is going to start off with blocks. So let me hand it over to Scott. Thank you.
Okay.
I need to change. Just a minute.
Okay. All right. Welcome back, everybody. We're now in 2016, and as Geeta says, we're picking up our regularly scheduled webinars. Today we're going to be talking about blocks and menus, and we're going to get started first with blocks. Now, keep in mind, we do have a lot of written information. I do want to point out, if you go to bookweb.org, go to e-commerce and ebooks, IndieCommerce and IC Help Center. There's a lot of written documentation. We also have some training videos that have been recorded under the Training Video Center, as well as previous webinars. Okay. But today we're going to talk about, as I said, we're going to start by talking about blocks. Blocks are a rather discrete box of information that you can put on your Drupal site. Blocks really help make Drupal as flexible as it is. Of course, you can create pages and you can create events and things like that, but a block is meant to be smaller and it doesn't hold as much information. Now, as we look around the site here, we can see blocks that we've created. I've created one for the Declaration of Independence. There's a shopping cart block. There's a calendar block here. Some of these blocks are created by Drupal, and they are available for you to use or not use as you see fit. And others I've created myself, such as this one here, the Declaration of Independence. I've also created a little block with my logo and some store information. There are a couple of blocks here, the Indie Next list. Again, this is information that is supplied by IndieCommerce, and you can simply place the block or not as you see fit. Again, the search right here, again, is a block that can be moved around. Blocks, again, they can be placed in different regions. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at the blocks that are available for my site. So we're going to go to Structure and click Blocks. And from here, we can go to Add Block, or we can look at blocks for different themes that I've enabled. Right now, let's just go to Blocks. This is going to bring us to a page that shows us the blocks for the default theme that I'm currently using, which is Responsive Bardic. Now, it also shows block possibilities for other themes that I've enabled, but we'll take a look at that later. When you get to the block page here, the block page is trying to show you where your blocks have been placed. And there are different regions. At the top of the blocks page, you'll find a link that says Demonstrate Block Regions for a particular theme. So if we click on that, we can see my Responsive Bardic theme, and these are all the places where a block could be placed. There's a header, there's a featured, there's a sidebar first and second, highlighted, help, there's content, and then a bunch on the bottom here, including the footer. We'll go back, we'll exit the block region demonstration. We come back here. Now this page will list all the different block regions, and it will show you if you have a block in that region or not. For this particular theme, I don't have a lot of blocks. I don't have any placed in the header or the help section or anything like that. We do have main page content in the content section, which is where it should be. And then I have a bunch of blocks in my sidebar. So here you can see my Declaration of Independence. There's a few other things that don't show up on every page, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Going down to my second sidebar, I have my shopping cart, some shipping notes, my events calendar, etc., and a few other blocks here. And then all the way at the bottom, after all of my block sections, I find a list of disabled blocks. There are a lot of blocks here, some of them that I've created, some that Drupal has created are simply available, and I just haven't used them. There are a few things in here. If you scroll down through your disabled blocks, you may find some interesting things. But again, we're going to get back to a few of these in a little bit. What I want to do now is actually set up a block. We're going to create a block very quickly. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it. This is going to be a block just to show you what you can do. This is going to be a block that will only be visible to certain people. It will be visible to your store administrators. So we start the process by going to Structure, Blocks, and Add Block. And you'll notice there's also an Add Block link right here. In this case, I'm going to call this Admin Links. The block is going to have a block title. This is going to appear when it's placed on the site. There's also a block description. This does not need to appear, but every block has to have a description of its own so we can tell them all apart from each other. Now, in the block body, I've put a little bit of information here. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to grab a couple of bits of text, and I'm going to drop them in there. And reports. And the last one here. Blocks. So what I'm going to do is, using just the regular WYSIWYG functions that can be found within a block or a page or an event, I'm going to make these into links. So let's go back here. And what I've done is I've gone through and I've chosen a couple of pages that I want my store administrators to be able to access very quickly. Now the entire address for these pages is kind of long. As you can see, videodemo.d7.indiebound.com/admin, etc., etc. Because I'm linking from one page in my site to another, I don't need the entire address. I just need everything after .com/, what is referred to as the path. So I'm going to come back here, and from my order processing, I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to apply a link, which is somewhere in here. That's a link. And it's going to be an internal path, and it's just going to go to this this path. So I'm going to click OK, and I have another one for reports. Again, I'm just going to click, just copy everything after .com/. Come back here again, highlight it, click link, drop in my path, and click OK. And then for the last one here. Take blocks, turn that into a link, and click OK. So now I have my my links here. Now these links can't be accessed just by anyone. You have to be a store administrator or you can't get to those pages. So what I'm going to do, now that I've created my block with these links in it, what I'm going to do is arrange for it to appear on my responsive Bardic theme. These other themes are available for me to use, but they are not my default. They are not what my customers are currently seeing. So under my default theme, I'm going to put this right in the header, all the way at the top. Then I'm going to restrict this. I'm going to restrict it by role. I can restrict it by pages. That is, a block can appear on certain pages and not on other pages. It might be visible to some users and not others, but in this case, I'm going to restrict it by role. I want only my store administrators to be able to see this. And I'm going to click Save Block. And now we've created the block, and we've also placed it in the header. So we have our admin links there. So let's go take a look and see what it looks like. So I'm going to go back to the home page, and I now have a little tiny menu up here. Now it doesn't look very neat. It kind of pushes my my header around a little bit, but keep in mind this is not visible to my customers. It is only visible when a store administrator logs in. And they'll see this little nifty list of links that they can get to. If we want to get to order processing, it's very simple to do. Okay, so that was just to show you the blocks are very easy to set up. They have a number of controls where you can dictate where they will appear and to whom they will appear. But let's go a little further now. We want to talk a little bit about menus. So let's go back to our home page. And actually, let's once you have a block here, you can often hover over the block while you're logged in as an admin. And you'll see a little gear here. And from this, I can go in and configure my block directly. And in this case, what I'm going to do is, for the moment, I'm just going to take it out of my header. I'm going to click Save. Keep in mind the block still exists. It just isn't being used at the moment. Okay. So another thing that I wanted to point out about blocks is that they also go hand in hand with menus. If you create a menu, a block will be created at the same time. The menu allows you to actually go in and change what links are available in that menu, but the block allows you to actually post that menu somewhere. So let's go take a look at first at some menus. So we're going to go to Structure, and we're going to go to Menus. And you see there's a number of menus listed here. Most stores tend to use their main menu most often, and they often don't put links in the other menus that are here. So let's take a look at our main menu. Now we have a few links here that are fairly obvious. I have a newsletter link, a link that goes to my staff picks, and then I have staff picks by certain staff members. And then I have a few other links for gifts, and then there's my account and logout. Now we can see all these links here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 links here. But if you notice, on my actual site, there are no links. There's no menu here. I kind of did this on purpose because I wanted to show how ineffectual a site can be if it doesn't have a set of links. As a customer, I can't log in. As an administrator, I can't even log out. So a menu is really important to have at the top of your site. Now, there are a couple of ways that a menu can be displayed on a particular theme. There are generally two ways to do this. One is to take the block for that menu and place it somewhere on the site. The other way is some themes will allow you to simply turn a menu on and off in a particular location. So let's take a look at that aspect first. For this is a function of the theme that you're using. So we're going to go to Appearance, Settings, and in this case, I'm using Responsive Bardic as my default theme. So if I go to my particular theme, now the theme settings may have a lot of options here for you, and they may only have a few options here. This particular theme allows us to change the color, but we're not doing that here. And it also allows me to turn certain things on and off. In this case, there's a main menu, and I can turn that on. I'll come down here and click Save Configuration. And we'll come back to the home page. And now you can see I have a nifty little menu at the top here. My menu, as we saw, includes more links than this, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. So here's my main menu showing up in a very particular location on this particular theme. Now there's another way to do this. As I said, a menu also has a block associated with it. So I can go to Structure and Blocks, and by default I will come to the blocks for Responsive Bardic. So I'm going to scroll down here, and there is a main menu block, but at the moment it's not being used. It's under my disabled blocks. So under main menu, I'm going to grab this, and I'm also going to put this up in my, let's put it up in the highlighted section. And immediately when I do that, it jumps out of my disabled list and it jumps up into my my highlighted section here. So I'm going to go down here and click Save Blocks, and then come back around to the front page. Now this is what Responsive Bardic does with my menu when I put it on the home page. This isn't really very effective. This is not what I want. And again, the tabs across the top that this theme uses to display my main menu look a whole lot better. Now, as I said, we have a number of links, about almost a dozen links in the actual menu, but those aren't all appearing at the top here. And that is because what I've set up here is a drop-down menu. So we're going to go back. Let's take a look again at the structure for this particular menu. So under Menus, under Main Menu, we'll take a look at it. When you build a menu, links will be put on the menu, pulled all the way, they're justified all the way to the left. And you can see that each link has a little four-pointed arrow. I can take a little four-pointed arrow. First of all, I can pull it up and down, and I can switch links. I can change their position. But more importantly, I can indent a link one under another. So for instance, I have my staff picks, you'll notice, is pulled all the way to the left. My actual staff picks by staff member are indented a little bit to the right. And then under one of my staff members, there are some more pages that are indented even further. This is how a drop-down menu is set up. If you're not familiar, a drop-down menu allows you to hover over a particular link at the top and then drops down subordinate links that were initially hidden. So the way this needs to be set up, if you want a menu to drop down, then the structure in the menu needs to be like this. You're going to have a top-level link. Your subordinate links will be indented to the right just a little bit, and then any subordinate links to those will again be pushed in, indented a little bit to the right. Indenting is actually very easy. If you just grab the four-pointed arrow and pull it a little bit to the left, you'll see that it actually sort of snaps into place. Let's save this first. And we'll pull this link. Let's pull this link the other way. So we can pull these links back and forth. So this becomes subordinate. This link for Vicky becomes subordinate to this link by Scott. We're going to put this back where it was. So by putting all my links on the menu and then dragging certain ones a little bit to the right and others even further to the right, I can make a structure that will drop this menu down. Now, there are two other things that you need to remember for this. First of all, the top level link, this is my staff picks, from which the other links will drop. My staff picks link must be edited to show as expanded. If this is unchecked here, then even though I've created subordinate links, they will not appear. So if I've set my menu up with links indented to the right so as to be subordinate, the top level link has to be clicked as shown at show as expanded. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. So we'll save this. And the other thing you need to make sure of is that the link in question, any link that you want to actually appear on your menu, is enabled. Keep in mind it is possible to disable a particular link. So for Vic Picks, I will disable that. And now that link would no longer be available. It's here, it's still in my menu. The page that it links to still exists, but it no longer appears in my menu. So you can turn links on and off without actually having to get rid of them entirely, or without having to get rid of the content behind it. So remember that all of your links that you want to appear must be clicked as enabled. And if you want your links to drop down, the top level link for those drop down links must be selected as show as expanded. So let's go back to our home page here. And I have to get rid of this. I'm going to go to configure this block, and I'm going to take the block out. So now again, we're back to just my regular home page with my top level links here. If I click on staff picks, I can go to the staff picks page, and here I can see other links to other pages. But as you'll notice, we did create our staff picks to be a drop-down menu, but it's not dropping down here. This is because not every theme allows for links to drop down. In this particular case, Responsive Bardic does not allow for links to drop down. So while I've created my menu, I've set it up correctly, this link just isn't going to drop. That's just not the way this particular theme functions. There are other themes that we can take a look at. So in this case, I've set a few themes up in my theme key. So I'm just going to come down to my theme configuration and switch to a different theme. So we'll switch to Best Responsive, for instance. And we'll go back to the home page. Here we go. So now I have a list here. Now again, it's the same top level menu that I have, newsletter, staff picks, but in this case, if I hover over staff picks, it does drop down. And if I hover over Vicky's picks, it drops down again to show the next tier. So again, now you can see how this manifests itself. If we set up the menu correctly with the right top level link and the right structure underneath it, it will drop down if you simply hover over it. In some themes it will, in some themes it will not. So let's go back to the previous one. And go back to responsive Bartik. Now again, as I said, it is not possible for this menu to drop down. So we've created a drop-down menu, but it's not working here. There is a way around this. While themes can have menus that simply appear in a particular location, they can be toggled on or off. In this case, the drop-down function doesn't work. So what we can do is there are some modules that you can use that will allow you to force drop-down links on a particular theme. One of those is called Superfish. And the way you can tell if you have it or not, if we go to Structure and Blocks, if I go down to my disabled blocks, that's my sidebar, second sidebar, we come down to disabled, and you'll notice in alphabetical order we have something called Superfish, Superfish 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when the Superfish module is enabled, the idea is that it will allow you to drop menus down, and Superfish gives you 4 different blocks that you can do this with. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my Superfish 1, and I'm going to configure it. Now the Superfish doesn't have a place where you can actually type anything in. It is used for a very specific purpose, and that is to display a particular menu. So what we're going to do here, I'm not going to give it a block title. It's just going to be the block description. The menu that I want to appear in this block is my main menu. I can choose a different one, but I'm not going to do that. I just want my main menu to be displayed here. And I'm not going to make any other changes here. Horizontal, you can change whether the menu will drop horizontally or vertically. We'll keep it horizontal for the moment. Again, the default style, we're going to leave all of that as default. And we're just going to come all the way to the bottom. And we're going to save that block. Now we have to come down here again into our disabled blocks because I haven't placed it anywhere. So now our Superfish 1, I'm going to take, and I'm going to put this in, let's put it in the highlighted. And immediately, again, it jumps off of my disabled list up to my highlighted section here. So let's save that. And we'll take a look at the home page now. So now this has not only the menu that I can toggle on and off for this particular theme, but it now is showing my drop-down menu. However, as you can see, the style doesn't necessarily match. And that's the thing that you need to look out for. If you're using something like Superfish, it will force your menus to drop down, but it may not look exactly how you expected it to. So the color is a little bit different here. The style is a little bit different. And certainly this is not going to be the place where I want to put my block. So I can go back to configure this block, and I'll put it instead in, oops, there it is. Instead of highlighted, let's put it up in the header. Maybe that'll help a little bit. Save that block. And there we go. So now it's up on the top here. It's a little bit better. It's not interfering with my content. But again, given my choice between the two, while this one does drop down, this one looks nicer. So you're going to have your decisions to make depending on the theme that you're using and how you want your menu to react. So now I've shown a couple of other things. I've set up a couple of other themes here. I'm going to go back to my account and switch it to a different theme. By the way, the theme key tool allows you to look at other themes while your customers are still looking at your default theme. This is how you make changes before you actually switch out for a new theme. I wanted to show you, in some cases, let's take a look at mix and match. This is a little interesting the way this one behaves. It saves my drop-down structure, but it drops it all down by default. So you can see my top-level links across the top here but it automatically drops down my subordinate links all the way down. Again, not very pretty. So mix and match will drop menus down, but it will drop them down by default. You can't, they won't retract at all. So again, this would be if you're using the mix and match theme and you want a drop-down menu. Again, it would probably be good to go in to the blocks here, and keep in mind when you go to the blocks, if you've enabled different themes, it gives you the option for all those themes, but it's always going to default to your default theme. So let's look at mix and match for blocks, and I'll go down to the Superfish number 1, and we'll put this, put it in highlighted. Let's see how that works. Save that block. And here's where it puts those little links. Again, it looks drastically different. It does drop my menus down, but again, it just doesn't look the way I may have expected it to. So these are options that you have available to you, but again, depending on the theme that you're using and how you want your menu to look, and if you want it to drop down, you're going to have to take a look at those things. Okay. Okay. Just checking my notes to make sure that I'm not missing anything.
Hi, it's Geeta again. Just to point out, there are a couple of sites out there that use mix and match. Scott, if you just want to show them Village Books, they use a version of mix and match, and it has a drop-down menu. It may need a little tweaking of the Superfish menu, but they were able to make it work with a drop-down right in the menu region.
Okay. So they do have a drop-down menu here.
It may require a little bit of tweaking with the default Superfish, but it is possible to make it work. So if you decide to choose Superfish for your drop-down, and if it doesn't work the way you want, please write to us. We can definitely find a way to fix it.
So I just want to highlight some of the things that stores run into when working with the drop-down menus and different themes, and so you'll be a little more prepared. If it, again, as Geeta says, if it doesn't work exactly the way you're looking for, let us know, and we'll take a look and see what we can do. Okay. Okay. All right. I think we might go on to our next.
Yeah, okay. So Scott talked about the blocks and the menus, and let's move forward. And the next topic that we will cover today is the book lists. And I'll hand it over to Scott. You can hand it over to Ryan. So Ryan can
store preference that you can adjust to show descriptions for books, and that preference can be found by going to Store, Configuration, Account Information and Preferences, and Store Preferences. And the preference in question here is Default Product Description. When checked, the book list will show the product description for each book by default. When unchecked, no book list will be shown. No product description will be shown. So to create a book list, you go to Content, Add Content, and choose the content type for the book list you're creating. For today's example, I'm going to create a new page. And you do need to provide your book list with a title. So I'm going to call it My Book List. And if you had any description information about the book list you're creating that you wanted to add, you would go ahead and put that into the body. If you do not, you can go ahead and scroll right down to the book field. And that's this field here where it says books. And then you have a field where you can enter in the product ISBN, SKU, or model number. Now, I'm going to go ahead and enter in a ISBN here. And you might have one already saved. I'm going to choose this one. And sorry about that. That did not take it correctly. So that's what will happen if you enter an invalid product. And when you enter a correct one and click away from the actual field where you're entering it, you will then run the widget to actually pull that ISBN in. So here you can see I've selected the ISBN for the Hidden Light of Objects. It's going to tell you a little bit about the book ISBN you just entered. So it tells you it's a hardcover, who it's by, the price, and the pub date here. And you can certainly create a book list with just one book, or as more often is the case, if you're going to add a few books, you can go ahead and click add another item. And you can go ahead and enter in your next ISBN. Click away from the field again. It will pull that ISBN in. And you would just repeat doing that until you had all of your preferred books entered into the list. And when you're done, you're going to scroll down to the bottom of the page and hit save. So that creates your book list. And as you can see here, because my store preference was to show product descriptions, it is doing just that. So the product description for this first book lets me know it's the winner of the 2014 First Book Award. The second book tells me a little bit about it. And that's my book list. It's really that simple to create one. But maybe I don't want to show the default product description here. Let's say that I've read The Hidden Light of Objects myself, and I want to talk a little bit about what I thought of the book instead. When I go and edit that page, I can scroll back down, and you'll see that next to each book you enter, you have the No Review button here. If I click that little arrow, that's going to bring up the review section, and I can write in a description myself of this book. So I'm going to say, I read this book and loved it. Everyone should read it. Now, when I scroll down and save this, instead of the default product description being displayed for that book, my description is being displayed. You can also create a book list in bulk. So if I decided I wanted to edit this book list in bulk, I have this tab here that says book list. And I'm going to insert a little note here that if you don't see this tab book list when you're on your own site, that doesn't mean you don't have the ability to. It just means we don't have the module enabled for you yet. So you will just drop us an email asking that we enable it to staff@bookweb.org, and we'll go ahead and get that enabled right away for you. When you click the book list tab, it brings you to the Manage This Book List page, and you'll see that there's just a list of my ISBNs or SKUs. So if I wanted to remove one here, I can go ahead and take one off and click Save. And now my book list only has the one book. If I wanted to add an entire group of ISBNs here, I can certainly go ahead and do that simply by keying them in one by one. If I already had them typed into a separate notepad file, I could just go ahead and copy and paste an entire listing here. The important thing you want to remember is that you are editing your live book list here. So if you had an entire list here and you deleted that list and saved, that's going to remove the book list entirely. And once you have done that, there is no way to recover it without entering it all back in. So you just want to be a little cautious when you're using that screen. Okay. And you can use the book list tab right away. You don't have to be using it only on a previously created tab. If you wanted to create one, you would do Content, Add Content Page. You need to at least put in your title of the page. So I'm going to call this my second book list. I will save my page as it is with no other information entered. And then I will go ahead and click the book list tab. And I can just copy any of my SKUs in here. You want to make sure you're entering them one row after the other. So after I get in my first one, and bear with me while I type this in, I would go ahead and repeat that and enter each one line on its own. And when I save it, okay, we're going to do this with just one for right now. So when I save it, sorry, I am picking some very invalid SKUs apparently. Bear with me one more minute while I try and enter in a valid one. Actually, I'm going to pull one right here. Please just bear with me one moment. I am having quite a bit of technical difficulties today. Scott took all the good luck from me. We'll blame him today.
That's what I'm here for.
So as you can see, now that I have managed to input valid ISBNs, my book list is created. So again, it's really that simple to create a book list. By default, the book field are on the content types page and event. So you can add one to them easily. And we can also always add the book field for you to other content types. We can show you how to do it, or you can always write in and request that we do it. And again, let's go over the display of what's showing. So on my book list, you get the title, the author, the price, the ISBN itself, the stock availability, when it was published and who published it. You will have the Add to Cart button. If your site has the wish list module enabled, you will also have the Add to Wish List. And then if you've opted to allow product descriptions to display by default on that store preference page, then you will have that product description here. If you opted to not allow the product description to show, then that's going to be removed. And as I showed you before, if you wrote in your own review, then that's going to replace this as well. And that's as simple again as going back to the edit and coming down to the review section for each book and entering in your own review. Saving the page, and it replaces it. So now instead of that paragraph you originally saw with the book description, it's just telling you what I said about the book. So that's really handy, especially if you're doing anything like a staff review, then it's good to have your staff put in their own little blurb about it. Okay. So we're also going to go over how you control what is actually displayed here. So if you go to structure, the content type you chose, so in this case I'm going to page, and then manage display. The book field here is set by default to show the product review with the metadata and the buy button. You can change this if you desire. So if you only wanted a basic without the buy button, you can select that and then save this. And once saved, when you go back to view that book list, bear with me 1 second. Now the buy button is gone. If you want it to show it with the buy button, again, structure, content types, the content type you edit the book list to, in this case page, manage display, and I'm going to say I want the full with all metadata and the buy button again. I'm going to go ahead and select that, save it, and when I go back to that book list again now, my buy button is back. You could set it so that it only shows the cover image as well. And to do that, it's still the same steps. I'm just showing you all the different options you have. And the nice thing about that is that even if you've set it to show only the cover image, then they can review it on your book page here. So it's just giving me the cover image. If I were to click on it, it's still going to take me to the full product page, so they can still add it to the cart. And so you can use those at different times. If you want to show the full book data information on your page, but if you've created